Welcome to Entrepreneurs Hour, Faith-Based Edition, where we talk about the powerful connection between faith and business. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Austin. I'm also the president of Ardea, proud sponsors of this show, as well as WRFR 93.3 FM. Every month on our final show of each month, we set aside the time to focus on faith, because after months of talking with my guests, one thing is clear. The journey isn't easy. There's a lot of ups and downs, but focusing on the positives and leaning on faith gives the journey real meaning. Each month, I sit down with my guests who are living out their calling, leading with purpose, and navigating life's challenges throughout the lens of faith. I'm excited you're here with us today, so let's dive in. Good morning, listeners and our viewers on Facebook Live and everyone else that will be listening and our streaming on WRFR.org. Also in the near future, we'll be on YouTube. But today I have a very special person to me, someone that is in the Rock Coast Entrepreneurs alongside me for the last couple of years now, Paul Miner of Compas Insurance. Paul is a good man. Paul is a man of faith. And when I asked the group members to be guests on the show, and I said, Paul, I would love for you to be on the Faith-Based Entrepreneur Show. And you were like, there was no hesitation. You're like, sure, I will absolutely do this. Now, this is not going to be a funny podcast like you were just on YouTube. You're YouTube famous now.
All right.
And but everyone, this is our faith-based edition of Entrepreneurs Hour. This is very special to me, being somebody that's got a renewed faith, and really, I'm all in on the Lord right now and my family, and it is. I'll tell you, He's come in clutch in many ways.
That's right.
And I just can't wait for Paul to share his story too, because he is a man of faith, and he has a lot to talk about today. And so, first of all, I'll just start off with when I looked over Paul's bio, I thought, this is, I went out and I started, I used ChatGPT for a lot of like tying, different scriptures. And I'll tell you, it's a great tool for reading the Bible. It really is.
Sure.
But also, too, to be able to tie certain conversations. And the good old AI nailed it with Proverbs 22, verse 1. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favor rather than silver and gold.
Yeah, amen.
It ties beautifully into Paul's emphasis on integrity, service, right, and long-term relationships over chases of fortunes. And I know that, it's a delicate balance, right? You're a family man, you got a beautiful wife and son, and
Yeah.
and it's
They
not
come first.
they come first, right? So we got to balance those things each and every single day. And it's just a really, really good thing for us to be able to talk about today. But, as what we do on this show every single week is that we actually go ahead and we start off with a little opening prayer, and I'll get us started. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for just blessing us with great guests, being able to share their journey on how to balance faith and being an entrepreneur. And hopefully listeners, viewers in the future will also, maybe somebody struggling, we talk about seasons. There's good seasons, and there's some dark seasons that can happen for a lot of people. And sometimes turning to your light will give us that opportunity to get out of those dark seasons. And hopefully there'll be somebody that will be listening today that can understand how faith can play a critical role in the success that they have, not just as an entrepreneur, but in life in general. And we just praise your name in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Thank you.
You got
Thank
it.
you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Paul, so tell us a little bit about Compas Insurance. What do you do?
All right. Well, Compas Insurance Group is a property and casualty insurance agency primarily. I do have life and health licenses. I do very few life insurance policies, but I do provide that. I don't do any health insurance, but largely my focus is all property and casualty insurance, and my growth area and my most passionate area that I love is the marine insurance world. and so I ride a lot of fishing boats, a
Yeah.
lot of some diving operations, which was a very complicated insurance package to put together there with when the whole world of admiralty law and maritime law. It's just fascinating to me, and so I've just found that interesting, and really just get not quite excited about it because that's, I mean, we're talking about insurance, I guess, but that is the area where I'm looking to grow and to build my book of business. It's in the marine world, so fishing boats, a lot of pleasure boats, commercial hull. That's what I really love to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, Paul, we're going to go into our first segment, which is going to talk a little bit about your early story and foundations, because it's really important to share how we all develop our foundations.
Hmm.
And yours started in a very different way than many of us. So you
Sure.
actually you were born and brought up at an early age in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And this was something for your family's missionary work, but also too there's a lot of things that you learned at a very young age and probably was instilled
Right.
in you
Right.
about poverty, faith, and gratitude. So I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, my parents were missionaries with the Orthodox Presbyterian Church, the OPC mission, and were there around 15 years. And my brother and sister are older. My brother and I were both born in Eritrea, which at that time was the northern province of Ethiopia, and they um, my dad built a hospital there. My mother was a nurse, and it was a medical missions environment, really, that they ministered to the health needs of the Tigranian people. Was mainly the local tribal people that lived in that area, and so that was where I was born, and like you said, that's the people there are very poor and very there the real unbelievable thing there is my dad grew and planted corn, and they had fantastically fertile soil in that area, and so it was it's just been interesting to observe over the years how unfortunately politics can and really just greed in politics can negatively impact people, and that I really think I know that there's obvious geographical um, just complexities there that these people struggle with, and it is a simple way of life. So we have to to be real about that. But I saw firsthand the kind of the crushing impact of political and really religious persecution, particularly of this hospital, and I think that's a real factor when we look at some of these African nations' poverty. And I don't want to minimize the other issues that exist there, but it's a factor, and it was a huge factor in what eventually the OPC ministry withdrew from Eritrea.
Oh, it's too
So
bad.
yeah, I mean, some of the I think about like some of the verses that come to mind. Revelation 2:10. Be thou faithful even unto death, and I will give you a crown of life. And that's the verse that is on one of the nurse that I mentioned to you. Anna was one of the nurses there that served with my mom. There were several. They were, towards the end when had to get ready we had to go. The hospital was attacked by the Eritrean Liberation Front rebels, and they were after the doctor and the nurses, and Anna was older and a liability to them escaping quickly, and so they executed her right there.
And this
And
is you
she
were
was the
there.
first martyr of the Orthodox Presbyterian Church, and so on her graveside, on her gravestone, which is still there, and the whole place got destroyed in the war after we left, but the gravestone is still there, and it has that verse on it, and so that's always stuck to me. That
Wow.
verse, be faithful even unto death, and I'll give you a crown of life. That's God's promise to you anyway. But when do you see, we were like face to face with actual death. And so those are things that are real that you stick with you. And, especially as an impressionable, 5-year old. So,
That is just incredible to hear. Um, so I know that we'll probably dive into how that impacted you, and probably in a positive way too, maybe, or
yeah,
maybe
really,
some,
largely, mostly, I think. Yeah.
yeah, and I agree. Uh, so talk to us a little bit about, so you left when you were 5, and you came back to the United States.
Yeah, my family, we moved to Cumberland, Maine. My dad bought a farm in Cumberland, and yeah, ironically, the same property my mother had lived at as a younger woman in her growing up years, and so they were kind of, my dad loved to farm, and my mom was kind of coming home, and so it was, it was a good thing. We grew up in Cumberland and on a farm for quite a few years. I remember a lot of hard work
Yeah,
on that farm, and
yeah,
that kind of the whole business kind of it was a chicken farm, and in the 80s that kind of all blew up and was done, and so
but let's talk a little bit
yeah.
about that because farm life is not, I mean, I know that some people will move, from away, come to Maine to, that's their happy place. They want to be a farm, but
Well,
a farm in the 80s or even a real farm, a big farm, it's not easy work.
it's a farm that, this is where your livelihood is surrounded by. Everything has to work and be profitable, and it's, or it is a disaster. And but ultimately, like, I just get it. It was hard work. I remember a lot of hard work, and
So
um,
how did that
it
shape you, Paul?
just, well, I mean, you had to get it done. It was a
Yeah,
farm, like the chicken barns had to get shoveled out. That was
I
just
could
a
smell it
hideous,
now.
disgusting project. It was hard
Ammonia.
work. Yeah, yeah, it was awful. I remember getting kicked by a cow. It was they just that's what they did.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some amazing things too, just playing in the hay. We were still young, I mean, in grade school, and so it was fun living on a farm.
Yeah. So hard work, that kind of really defined,
Yeah, hard work.
yeah, hard work.
That
And
was my dad's,
yeah,
really. He worked hard. He made every minute count.
yeah,
And I think anybody that's going to be successful on a farm kind of would have to agree that
yeah.
you got to work. I mean,
So so growing up with a farm, hard work, obviously, that, being a child at a farm, you don't necessarily just to get to sit on the sidelines. You're actually in it to win it
oh
with the
yeah,
family.
yeah,
So that,
totally. Driving
so,
tractors around as a kid,
oh,
and
fun. Yeah.
yeah,
It sounds fun.
yeah, yeah.
There's some
Well,
responsibility that comes
yeah,
along with that too.
yeah. All day is, yeah. You'd rather go off and be doing other things.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so so as a young man, then you obviously, you were a good student and you decided to go for a secondary
Well,
education.
yeah.
We'll just put it at that,
I had
right?
a lot of fun in college.
Yeah. You went to Cedarville University. So where's Cedarville University?
It's in Cedarville, Ohio, and it's about an hour west of Columbus, an hour northeast of Cincinnati, a couple hours southwest of Cleveland. Yeah, beautiful area. Cornfields edged everywhere. Um, nicest people in the world. There's great friends in Ohio still.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great memories, great chapter of life. Yeah,
And
Cedarville's a fantastic school.
so what made you choose from Cumberland, Maine to go to Cedarville?
Well, ironically, I was 3 years there. My freshman year in college, I went to school in Kansas, actually, and that was at a school that my grandmother went to in Central College in Kansas, and she thought I should apply there, and hounded me enough, so I did, and they actually gave me quite a bit of scholarships and financial aid. So I went there for a year. It wasn't really a good fit for me. I don't think
Yeah.
it was. I kind of it would have been an associate's degree, and I wanted a bachelor's degree, and so I just moved on after 1 year. But I had a bunch of friends at Cedarville that I grew up with in Cumberland and in southern Maine, and they were at Cedarville, and so
That's
we went
awesome.
to Cedarville.
And
Yeah.
you get and you had and that's where you received a business degree. Is
Yeah, I
that
earned a
correct?
business degree there. Yeah, I met my wife at Cedarville. Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
those are
You
great
have the love of
years.
your life.
They were great years.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, I'm
Um,
blessed.
so obviously as a young man going to college, and was God starting to become more and more important to you? Like, when did that journey start to? Because obviously you grew
Well,
up with that through the missions, right? But
we grew up on the mission field. You know, that's the front lines of the spiritual warfare, and and entrenched in church, and you do, yeah, you do. So, I would say it's difficult to. In the middle of college, a friend of mine from Maine, his brother committed suicide, and that was a pretty good gut punch at that juncture. Just knowing this kid as a friend and a sibling of a good friend, that something about that really snapped the switch that I just took more seriously that walk with God. And Cedarville is a Christian liberal arts school, and so the whole the curriculum is. I earned a Bible minor as a part of just the standard curriculum there at Cedarville, and so but yeah, it would have been the middle of during college that it really kind of got into more high gear, if you or just taken more seriously.
yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
did you get into mission work while you're in college or after
Well,
college?
yeah, yeah. Multiple, yes. I've been on about 5 missions trips to the Dominican Republic, and I served on the board of directors of a nonprofit corporation that was called HEMA USA at the time. The entity has dissolved since, but we supported a wonderful ministry in the Dominican Republic. Pastor Jose Lopez and the New Song Church in Hanamosa, a very poor barrio of Santo Domingo, and we built a school there, a church. The church is still an active church there, and met some amazing people there, which I know you know, Miziel,
My
um,
friend. Yes.
and there's others that I served on the board of directors of another corporation called Sudan Relief and Development, and this was a ministry that we tried to cultivate microeconomic development projects. This was in southern Sudan, and to help give them resources and training and money to try to have just some business enterprise that they could be profitable for themselves to try to be more successful as people. And those are, yeah, and I mean, I've been on a couple other missions trips that they're very impactful, very impactful.
So,
Serving is you're out there I remember being scared to death on some of these missions trips where and very uncomfortable too. I mean, but it kind of is, serving is you're denying yourself, right? And trying to do something better for people, you know,
yeah.
trying to make a difference in people. So for people.
And I know that you have, and so having those organizations, in the past as well. So, was just shift gears a little bit and just talk a little bit about the career's ups and downs. Was talk a little bit about because when you graduate college, did you go right into corporate USA? Is that what happened?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. So, growing up on a farm, I've many times you're like, well, I don't ever want my family to have to go through this. And, you kind of look past all, many of the things about it, and you just want better, right? Or you want more. And so in the course of, the business degree and then in a management degree, you're looking towards going into the business world, and you formulate these ideas of success, and frankly, I just wanted to be wealthy and whatever that took. And um, but I came back to Maine, and I tried to find a job in Maine. I could not find a job. And so my girlfriend at the time was, at Cedarville. And so and the job market, honestly, in Ohio was booming. And so I went right out there and got a job with a company that was in consumer lending. I went into their management training program. HSBC North America owned a consumer lending entity called, it was Beneficial Corporation. We did all kinds of consumer finance, merchant lending, mortgages, all just consumer finance. And so I was in that management training program, and the company was booming, and they were all over the U.S. So as soon as we got married and my wife graduated, we moved. We were fortunate the company relocated us to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and then within like 6 months, we had our sites here in Maine, and so I got transferred to Portland, and then we opened a Vanguard office in Augusta, and Augusta was just a fantastic market for that business, and it thrived and was very successful. And 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 we were very successful, and it was unreal. Honestly, I didn't expect that, or the success actually in the not just financially, but just, well, I mean, with professionally advancing, my head grew bigger than like any hot air balloon you've ever seen, basically. Okay, and so the
But it, but
and
but in your words though is that you're having that great success, but it just wasn't fulfilling.
Well, that's true. Okay, yeah, it wasn't. That's right. But see, I really think that that's a marker of where when you are your eyes on God, and and really obedience to Him, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not successful or wealthy, but okay, but it's where it's again, it's about your heart. I mean, is it Matthew 6:23? Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so my heart had kind of gotten fixated on just the success and making money, and it was a long hours. And when my wife and I were traveling a lot, it was awesome. When Patrick was born, there was a major seismic shift in that perspective. And that really, I'd come home from work on a Saturday morning. He'd be scared to death of, like, who in the world is this person that just showed up for the weekend? And it was just like I just started to hate it,
Yeah,
actually.
it's
and
amazing what
um,
kids can do.
and I felt, you know guilty that there wasn't more time with him. And I was, and so, yeah, I quit the job, um, and looked for some other jobs that just didn't work out. And really, like, everything really collapsed significantly. As far as, like, from a professional perspective, and a financial perspective. We built a ginormous house that was ridiculously, like, big, but it was unnecessary. But we had to have the biggest house in the town, so that was our life. And so, and all these things, it was God, like, I think He came through with a wrecking ball, as far as what was it that was in the way of putting Him first, and in my life, and those things that were like in the way were going. And
Hmm.
he gave me many opportunities to, you have every opportunity really every day to choose, what are you going to do? And and I made many years of choices that were not good, and that, and there's other things there, but in the end, I think that he basically had enough. And I think every person possibly has an experience where God like sends a wake up call to you to, if you're not going to change, he can make things happen so you change. And
That's right.
that's not always easy. And you
Hmm.
and many times like I remember often, I love this song by 10th Avenue North, the Where Mercy Begins, but there's a line in there like, sparks will fly when grace collides with the darker side of life. And that's, you're in the dark, God wants you to be in the light, and if you're in the dark and it's a and then you get comfortable with that, you're going to end up in with a big things blowing up badly if you're going to fight this. So it's anyway, that was,
So,
so
so
yeah,
Paul,
so
so for our listeners and our viewers, so when that world is colliding, right, and the sparks are starting to fly, and so how did you dig in? Like, how did you build that relationship back with God?
well, that's, yeah, so I guess that's just you going back to the basics, right? The what do I know I needed to, while we obviously were divested of all the, materialism issues, that those were gone. So
That was
that was
really
easy.
tough.
That
Yeah.
was easy, really. Going to there's a lot of humbling experiences, and you have to like, I think about, so Jeremiah 29:11 verse, it says, God says, I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future. And so for so many years, I looked at that verse, and when I thought of the word prosper, I was like, I'm going to get rich. And after like reading and studying the Bible a little bit more, and like that verse, and so there's a God's promises to you to prosper you. The word, that prosper word in the Hebrew, shalom, and there is about 82 variations of that word, and I wrote down a couple of them.
Okay.
And the word is like integrity, completeness, innocence, uprightness, tranquility, simplicity, prosperity, to be complete. And so there are 82 references like that. Only two have a monetary financial like attribute to them. And it's like, so when you think about this, so like when I think about the word prosper, and God like says he wants to prosper you, that isn't necessarily, having, a lot of money and a big house and a lot of money and stuff. I mean, it isn't. And that was a good lesson to learn that. And I mean, I guess, being in, just having to be refocused, to be involved in accountability, men's Bible studies, to be involved in active in our church, our friends in our church, our
Hmm.
support groups there were, were huge, really. And there and so, and we were going in a different, and then the opportunity just landed in my lap to start an insurance agency. And
Now, hold on. So you went
so,
from being like in corporate America to going out and, basically, reigniting that fire, right? And then all of a sudden that presentation of starting a business, which is
yeah,
not easy, Paul.
no, that's right. So one thing that really drilled home to me was like when I was, when I left the HSBC and was vice president of a bank in northern Maine, and I thought things were going well there. I got blindsided from out of nowhere and was just let go for no reason. Employment at will. I guess I was not a good fit for them. I'd come from a sales background and sales management background, so a performance results driven. They were a community bank. They wanted somebody to, I don't know what they wanted really, but But when I got fired from that job, I was like, there is no way that's happening again. and and so and that like so the idea of like so having my own business was appealing, obviously, because I didn't want to. I'm not going to fire myself. I don't think. Okay, well,
Oh.
sometimes I've wondered, um, but that, yeah, so that, I kind of, I went down a few years. I was working at Bath Iron Works doing design work because I love boats and really, and when I was a kid, I really wanted to design boats and that I worked on that and it was enjoyable. And ironically, I got laid off when the nature of defense contracts are
Yeah.
like when the work is done, you're gone. So that was basically it. I mean, and I could have gone back there, I think, but
But you went
I was
all
I was
in.
going like all in on my insurance business
Yeah.
at that point, and so and but being fired from a job that's a tough, that's a kick in the teeth, and and I was not going to have that happen again. Now maybe there's a little bit of pride there rearing its head, but I wanted to build my own business that nobody was going to take away from me. And that's what happened. That's what started, and it
Yeah.
was kind of a unusual. I would never would have, I don't think, put myself in the insurance business as, but
But you did, and you created
yeah,
Compass Insurance,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so with any business, you have almost a mission. Everyone should have a mission statement, or build a practice, or
yeah,
build a philosophy about how you want to build your business for
right.
sustainability, to do the right thing, right, and
Right,
and
right.
have value, not
Yeah,
just not monetarily, but value in the marketplace,
yeah.
like being
A
your
name.
own. Yep.
Yep. That's
So tell us a little bit about you know how you really put that into, because I remember you put into your bio about the principles of service, honesty, and value over profit.
right. Well, yeah, there was no profit in the early days. So yeah, you had to have those values that you decided that you wanted to shape your business by. And a commission on zero premium isn't very much. So when you start from nothing, it's literally, you just gotta make it work. So, right from day one, strategic partners are huge. And so I joined a membership organization called Strategic Insurance Agents Alliance. That's SIAA. And locally, the affiliate is SAN Group of Maine, Satellite Agents Network. So as a member of this organization, I had appointments with many different companies. And so that's like tough for anybody starting out in the business, is who is going to give you an appointment to write um, insurance. And they want to see a big business. Largely, a lot of them do. I still can't get appointments with some companies because I'm just not big enough. So but being a member of this organization, collectively, all these agents, we have an enormous book of business, actually. And so that gave me the opportunity to write alongside the biggest established insurance agencies, and I had the same products, so I could offer that. And so that's essential to really, and I remember a couple of companies, they gave me direct appointments. I remember those marketing reps, and I have fiercely loyal to those companies who took a risk, basically,
Hmm.
and gave me those appointments. And and so but that anybody can have the insurance policy can be written by any insurance agency, okay? And so the how do you treat your customers, and how do I had to give like exceptional service. I really try every time to um, you know, just to be prompt, but also, yeah, just to value. I mean, I have a book right now that the rates are exploding on it. Like customers are calling me like this, the rates are going up. I shop around. I found a lady a policy, a package, her home and auto and her umbrella. It was half the price than what she was getting renewed at. That commission is half. Okay, I mean, but it's like what's more valuable is, that person's been a client of mine for 15 years and my retention is like 95%. So, the continued repeated business and referrals are I don't do any marketing at all. So that's the the value is there is so yes, I'm not gonna I'm gonna take less money on that account, but I have a happy customer and you know more than I can't even tell you how many times
Yeah,
that's been referrals where other people are. um, I'm getting referrals all the time, and I hardly can keep up with them, honestly. So it's not
it's a
that's like
blessing. That's a
that's
blessing,
like
though.
the couple $100 that you might not make on that one account. It's if a whole new policy, if somebody they refer and somebody comes in, there's a whole new policy. There's just more business, and it's just and that's how it's just always been. I've just been very. I think that I've just been very fortunate to stay to those values and just work hard to give them a quality product too. I mean, like I look at like a simple example is like a glass deductible. I mean, I just sell that on every single. I try to on every single customer. It's like a few dollars more, but it's like glass is like the most common loss for insurance comp loss. I mean, windshields get hit with rocks all the time here in Maine, and
Hmm.
it's like nothing out of pocket for a glass deductible. It's like why not just I try just to offer as much value as I can and
Yeah.
try to explain that. But
Well, being that someone that has referred to you, my customers have been extremely happy with you because
well,
they see the value they put in, they see the hard work, and they see that they're doing business locally with a
well,
small business. And
a
I'll
lot of
tell you,
people
it's
like
a lot.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a small business owner just like you, and I absolutely depend on referrals. And but thing, it's not
Yeah.
a it's not a it's not a given. Like you have
Oh,
to
that's
earn
for
that.
sure.
You
All
have to earn
right.
that,
Oh yeah,
and
I let them
because
know. I let every customer know. I try to put it and on every email. I like thank you for the opportunity to earn your insurance business. When I thank you for the opportunity to quote your insurance business. And sometimes that may not happen. They may go somewhere else. That's fine. But I'm thankful for the business that I've been given, and I really do work hard to try to particularly like as for a business owner, and or well for any customer. I mean, there's a lot to an insurance contract, but commercial clients, you know, I mean, they have to have like the right coverage and and a lot of coverage, oftentimes people say, well, that's a lot of coverage, and I was like, well, if things go like terribly wrong, this is do you want to lose your shirt or do you want the insurance company paying this? So like, think about that. I mean,
Hmm.
so
So let's just do a little bit of a deeper dive on the next segment that we have that we're going to talk for next 5 minutes or so is defining faith and success. Why time? Let's talk about time.
right,
Okay. In his definition of in your definition of success. So let's talk a little bit about that time.
yeah, okay. Well, I brought that up as a key factor, right? I think a lot of business acumen would have ROI and profit margin and the bottom line, your balance sheet, all the financial, is time really included in that? I guess you have to make that decision. Are you going to have that be a valuable part of what your life? And I would admit I think that Compass Insurance could be like 10 times the company potentially than it is now if I had given it more time. And it just like it started out that I was working nights at Bath Iron Works to pay the bills, and then growing this insurance business during the day. And I'd see my wife for a few minutes in that, handing off my son, and I'd be off to work as she got home. And that was like, those were hard. Those were hard years. Those first year or two. But like the time I found with my son being able to, like just coach his baseball teams, and that turned into really something. I never played baseball. I raced alpine skiing. That was my sport and in high school. But I never played baseball, but my son Patrick loves baseball. And so I coached his baseball teams. That was a fun way to be with him. And I was a real nerd and analyzing statistics and details of all my team and to help them to improve. And and we had like a really, I think God really blessed those times. I mean, I was fortunate to have a championship win in those times, a couple actually. Um, and but that was time with Patrick, and but that's a lot of time that you're not sitting in my office or making, doing quotes or
Mm-hmm.
trying to grow the business, which I openly admit I'm not a sales guy, so I'm not knocking on doors, I'm not cold calling, I'm just not going to do that. I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't like it. And so, my dad, he got a glioblastoma, brain cancer, and that had a 4% survival rate. So they gave him 7 months, and we knew that that was the time that he had. And so I'm fortunate that my business had, I had my laptop. I spent a lot of hours and days at his hospice room and working, but then spending time with him, and those are precious memories that I will never forget. And
Yeah.
so so having my own business gave me that time, and that's how I chose to take the time. And so maybe I bypassed a lot more financial success or a few more clients, but I'll never give back that time.
Yeah.
That I cherish that time. Coaching my son, driving 9 hours, watching the Little League World Series in Williamsport. We went out there a couple times to
Oh,
watch that.
awesome, awesome, awesome.
The ultimate father-son getaway. Let's go to watch the World Series.
Yeah, that was
Those are
so
great
special.
memories. Yeah.
Last week, when I did my blog, it was like a post, Father's Day thing, and I think that a lot of men, they feel like just being around is being present, but
Hmm.
and being a business owner, it's really hard because it's hard to turn that off, because that phone's always connected to you,
Oh yeah.
right?
Hmm.
That computer's always
Yeah.
there. So, so like, what's your advice to fathers that are entrepreneurs to be more present with their children, and even
Well,
with their parents too? I mean,
I think
obviously
you
you do
gotta,
that. Yeah.
you gotta deny yourself, okay, that is like a tough concept, but I'd say you need to really figure out what is it your kids love, and then just bury yourself in it, invest in it, and it's not about you, it's about them. And just be patient with that, but just do something, and really genuinely, do it and to go all in, and I think that's difficult because so often, I remember a lot of times, and I just hang my head in shame on this, like in our early years of marriage, friends would call me up like, Paul, we're golfing, and I'm like, awesome, be there in a half hour. Libby, I'm going golfing, I'll see you in 5 hours. And that was so selfish. I mean, I think back now, I was like, that was so selfish. And you know and so, I would just say, you like, I think there's like a Cody Johnson song, a country music song that says, there's all these things that you can do until you can't. And,
Yeah.
you know, I would really encourage you not to be on the side of somebody is gone from your life that you loved, and you didn't do enough, you know.
Hmm. Thank you very much for sharing that. So, Paul, how do you integrate faith with your business? I know
Well,
it's a delicate balance,
yeah,
right?
that's an interesting one. You know, um, when September 11th happened, there was a pilot. The details are kind of escaping me, but he was a believer. He got reassigned. His flight got reassigned that day. He was supposed to be on a pilot of one of the planes that ended up being hijacked and crashed. And he did this story called "In My Seat," and I got these CDs. He came to our church and spoke. I wish it's I feel terrible. I can't remember his name now. That's terrible.
It's okay.
Um, but I put these CDs on my counter at my office, and it was like, and some people, and a lot of people were like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Well, it's a story about a guy that was a pilot on 9/11. His flight got apparently pilots can more senior pilots can bump out another pilot if they want to have a flight to. I'm not sure of all the particulars of the how all these flight assignments work. But anyway, he got bumped out of that flight, and then of course the plane got hijacked, and
Hmm.
we know the story there. But so this was this guy's testimony about that day, and so I just say that's what it is. And so largely I had positive responses to that. I mean, I don't have. Maybe to my shame, I should be more bold and more forward. And, I tried to really always, like I said, maybe I shared that quote with you about, looking up, not down, look out, not in, look forward, not behind, and lend a hand. I want to be the guy that lends the hand and shows who I am. And so I know a lot of my clients would not be in agreement with me on my faith or, some of my values, which I try to show a lot of grace, I hope, with not being critical or judgmental. Really try not to do that, and so I think that the majority of my clients would see like the whole environment at Compass Insurance is fairly neutral on that
Okay.
front. Yeah, maybe that's not a good thing, and maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
In this segment, we're going to go a little bit over because I think it's really, really important because you've mentioned it in your bio and something that you really want to talk about, and that's the importance of tithing, which is something that my
oh yeah,
wife and I, because I recently rebought the business and cash flow is tight, and the last thing
yeah,
that you got to think about is like, I'm gonna give to my church right now during a time of like I don't know, like I can't forecast. I have hope. I'm praying about it,
yeah.
but can you talk about the importance of why tithing is so important to you and why we should be
Well,
better at it?
so yeah, that's interesting. I think like the Bible speaks a lot about money. There's many references about money, and a lot of the parables, like the parables of the talents, the parable of the rich young ruler. The parable of the talents is a great example of like really a person's opportunity to double his money. And he pleased his master, and the person that just buried the money in the ground and didn't make earn interest on it. The guy was scorned for that. The rich young ruler. Jesus said to sell everything you own and give it to the poor, and then come follow him. And he walked away because the guy was wealthy. And so where was his heart? I can just say that it's a transaction, and it's just become just regimented. It's like I get a insurance business. I get paid once a month. Basically, all the carriers get dispersed commissions from the last month, first of the month, and like right now. So I think that the Bible. Well, I think the Bible says there's lots of things you can take from the Bible as far as giving, but like 10% is kind of a noted amount as far as in the Old Testament, and then I think I think that's a tithe. I think an offering is a generous gift above that, and like God has got to work with you as far as what you're going to do on that front. But, like 10%, like immediately, like if I get a check for, 10,000, I got $1,000. It's just bam, it's going into, we have a separate account. It's a giving account. It's for mostly ministry, our church, or if we support Fellowship of Christian Athletes, InterVarsity. My wife supports Children International youth that's is supporting a child for
Mm,
them. All those funds go. It just goes into that account. It's automatic. We try to make it so it's just like transactional because it's
yeah.
like otherwise I'm going to go buy a new set of golf clubs or a new boat or a bunch of boats because I love boats and I will blow the money faster than you can blink if it's not something that is, and
So,
it's just
so
got
you
to
can
be
be
something you
regimented.
want to
Yeah.
honor. God has blessed me with like more than I deserve, and in many ways, and then also, like my grandfather, I have a, I won't read it, but he gave I wrote he did Jesus gave everything for us, and so we can do a little bit back, and he doesn't ask for, a lot, but so I try to be regular on that, and I think back at years where I didn't, you didn't give as much, and I think about the years where I've tried to give more, and I have like been way more successful in those years. It's like it is. It's so I look back at those years and those financial statements, and the years that we gave more, we made way more, and it's like I can't explain it, but I think that's just God's just blessing that, and so
Yeah.
everybody's got to make their choice on what they want to do on that front. But there is a blessing to give. I'll just say that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, best advice ever received.
Okay. Well, yeah, well, from a business side, I go back to Cindy Wiley. I doubt she's listening, but she was the marketing rep for MetLife, and she said, just don't give up. And so this is we're talking about first years of an insurance agency, and it's like, what am I doing? Um, not making any money. She's just like, just don't give up. And so, I mean, that was a great piece of advice. It's simple, really, advice,
Hmm.
but it's like so we made this thing, we're gonna see it through. Don't give up, and I think that can be true on anything. My relationship with my wife. Well, we're gonna be married 29 years here on this week, so that on the 29th. Thankfully, this is a good. My memory is so great. Um, but we don't give up. I mean,
That's awesome.
that was I think that's probably one of the more profound ones, even though it's so simple. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Now, what I'm doing is I'm basically blending some of our speed round questions because you've had such great information
Mm.
and just sharing your story that we burned into
All
that
right,
time a little
all
bit,
right.
which is fine. I'm okay with that because I think there's a lot
Fire them
of
away. We'll get them
I
over
love
with.
this. But if you could have coffee with one biblical person, who would it be and why?
Oh wow. Okay. Um, oh man, there's so many. Um, Man, you've got me on that one. I think I've actually said this. I think I'd like to talk with Moses. I'd like to be, or yeah, I'd be curious to know well, I don't know. That's such a good one. You got me stumped on that. There's so many. Jesus, I guess I have to go with Jesus. Um,
Yeah,
you know, h- how did he have so much compassion? Would be my question.
yeah.
How can you put up with people that annoy you so well?
And
I mean,
knowing your fate, and knowing, not fate, but
um,
but knowing what's to come and still just
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
working through
Yeah,
it.
that's unreal.
I'm the reals for sure. All right, so what I'd like to do, Paul, I would love for you to close us out in prayer, and then after prayer, we'll go ahead and we'll give you a little
All
shout out for
right.
your business. Okay, so would you
Okay.
mind
All right.
doing
Sure.
that
All
for
right.
us?
Okay. We'll pray. Lord, we thank you. thank you for this opportunity, and I just pray for anybody in this audience, Lord, that this is that are entrepreneurs. I just pray that you just give them a sense of purpose and focus, so they can to work hard and to stay true to their values first and foremost, and to grow their business with integrity, and to trust that you are going to bless that, and that may mean setting some things aside, or doing things differently, or making a stand that you didn't normally do, but that just takes courage, and you're just a better person for that in the end. And so I just prayed that myself, that I continue to daily try to continue to do better, and I thank you for your example that you've given us to do better. um, and so just like together, we can support each other and help each other, and I'm thankful for all you've given me, and for this opportunity. And so I just hope that anybody that's watching this or listening to this can also be affirmed and encouraged that they can be successful in their life, and that they should define and make those goals and be successful. And you can help them do it. And we just ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Paul. All right, we have a couple minutes here left. So, how can folks learn more about Compass Insurance?
Well, my website is Compass Insurance, compassinsgroup.com. We're fairly active on Facebook, and my cell phone number is 837-9703. Just call or text me. Oftentimes you may need to leave a message, but I will get back to you. Again, I am the least pressure insurance guy ever, I think. And so I'd be thrilled to look at all your insurances and just compare, and then, I can propose what I can do. And if there's something better, then we take a closer look. And if what you got is a competitive place to stay, I tell people now and then, just don't change anything. So
All right.
that's,
You're an honest man.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you, Paul. And also, Paul and I, we network together, the Rock Coast Entrepreneurs.
right.
And
It's a great
that's
group.
another great way for you to be able to connect with Paul. We meet again next Thursday and at 8 a.m. But thank you, listeners. Thank you for the supporters. This is my last show until August. I'm going to take the month of July off. I'm going to be going on a journey myself, and I can't wait to share that with all of you. And I think that when we come back, we'll probably even have two shows. We're going to have Entrepreneurs Hour, and then we're going to dedicate a show a week as well to entrepreneurs in the faith as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.